Was this really just a tragic medical accident, or is there a much darker, calculated betrayal hiding behind those hospital curtains? I mean, think about it for a second, because we've seen some wild things on the cobbles lately, but what's happening with Betsy Swain and Dylan Wilson right now feels completely different. It's messy, it's emotional, and honestly, it's making me look at some of these characters in a whole new light. If you've been following the latest spoilers, you know Betsy is about to face a terrifying health battle that almost no one saw coming. She's set to suffer a teenage stroke, which is a massive, life-altering medical twist that the show has now confirmed. But the real story isn't just about the heart monitors and the MRI scans. The real drama is the absolute chaos that breaks out when Dylan Wilson is backed into a psychological corner and makes a shocking allegation that could ruin an innocent person's life forever. Is Dylan a victim of a mother's grief-fueled vendetta, or is he just a coward looking for a way to save his own skin? Let's set the scene, because before the siren started, things actually looked pretty sweet for these two. We see Betsy and Dylan in the kitchen at number 6, and they're basically playing house while making a pot of spaghetti bolognese. Betsy tries to cook breakfast earlier, but it goes totally wrong, so Dylan steps in to show her how it's done. It's this really quiet, domestic moment where they're talking about their future and how they're going to make a long-distance relationship work when she moves to London for fashion college. They're hugging, they're smiling, and for a minute, you almost forget all the trauma they've already been through with Mason Radcliffe. But looking at this through a storytelling lens, doesn't it feel like a total setup? The writers give us this perfect moment specifically so they can rip it away 5 minutes later. It's classic soap opera math, where you give the audience a reason to root for the couple just so the tragedy feels twice as heavy. In my opinion, this bolognese lesson is actually quite symbolic because Dylan is trying to be the provider and the teacher. He's showing Betsy he can take care of her, which makes his later behavior feel like such a massive betrayal of everything he stands for in this scene. The mood shifts instantly when Ryan Connor walks into the kitchen and finds Betsy unconscious on the floor. Can you imagine the panic in that room? 1 minute they're joking about pasta, and the next, an ambulance is racing Betsy to the hospital with its sirens blaring. This is where things get really intense because we aren't just talking about a simple fainting spell or a bit of exhaustion. Spoilers reveal that Betsy is taken for an MRI scan to figure out why she collapsed. And then, the scene takes a horrifying turn when Dylan arrives at the hospital to see her. He's standing there, probably feeling completely out of his depth, and suddenly he is to witness Betsy having what looks like a seizure. He panics and rushes out to tell Lisa and Carla what's happening while the doctors rush in to stabilize her. Honestly, seeing a teenager go through something that visceral is a lot for any viewer to handle. Some fans on Reddit are already joking that we might as well rename the show Weatherfield Hospital because we spend so much time there lately, but this specific medical crisis feels much more personal. Why a stroke, though? That's the question everyone is asking right now. A teenage stroke is apparently a soap first when it's potentially linked to drugs. I think the writers chose a stroke because it carries a weight that a standard drug scare doesn't. A stroke implies potential permanent damage and a long, slow recovery journey. It effectively traps Betsy in Weatherfield because she had these big dreams of London, and now that future might be gone before it even started. It's a way to keep her on the show while giving her a massive mountain to climb. If we look at Lisa Swain during this, she isn't just a detective anymore. She's a mother who is drowning in guilt. She was the one who didn't want Betsy to move away, and now her daughter is fighting for her life. That guilt has to go somewhere, and unfortunately for Dylan, she's decided to point it all at him. She's so desperate to find a reason for this that she stops being an objective cop and starts acting like a vigilante mother. The psychological layer here is really something else. Dylan is obviously terrified, but he's also extremely immature. When he sees Betsy seizing, his first instinct is to run. He can't handle the reality of death or serious illness being that close to him. But Lisa interprets that run as a sign of guilt. She sees a boy who is hiding something, and she's not wrong to think there's more to the story, even if her methods are totally over the line. I think we have to reframe this collapse not just as a medical event, but as the moment Lisa Swain loses her professional edge. She's a detective sergeant, but she lets her emotions drive her straight to the police station to report a crime, without having any real evidence yet. She lashes out at Dylan in a public cafe, accusing him of being responsible for Betsy's condition. In my opinion, Lisa's behavior here is actually a terrifying abuse of power. She's using her badge to bully a teenager because she's too heartbroken to face the fact that this might just be really bad medical luck. Now we get to the part that really has people talking, which is the arrest and that shocking allegation. Imagine being Dylan for a second. You're already devastated because your girlfriend is in a hospital bed and won't see you. Then out of nowhere, you're being arrested in the middle of the precinct in front of everyone. Fizz Dobbs even watches it happen, so you know the gossip is going to spread through the street like wildfire. This is the breaking point for Dylan. He's scared, he's humiliated, and he's facing a potential prison sentence for something he might not have even done. In a moment of pure, raw survival, Dylan throws someone else under the bus by claiming that Brody Michaelis is the one actually responsible. Why Brody, though? Well, it's a smart, if incredibly greasy, move. Brody has a history with drugs, so he's the perfect bad influence for Dylan to point to. Dylan knows that if he gives the police a bigger fish, they might stop looking at him. It's a classic deflection tactic. Underneath the accusation, Dylan has to be feeling a massive amount of shame. He's essentially snitching on a friend to save his own skin. He's probably telling himself that he's doing it for Betsy, but let's be real here. He's doing it because he's a coward who can't handle the pressure. He's discovering just how far he's willing to go when his own life is on the line. This is Dylan's ego defense in full effect. By blaming Brody, he can keep pretending he's the good guy who would never hurt Betsy. If it's Brody's fault, then Dylan is still the hero in his own head, right? It's a way for him to sleep at night while Betsy is struggling to speak in a hospital bed. I honestly can't stand what Dylan is doing here. Even if Brody is a troubled kid, Dylan is weaponizing Lisa's anger to protect himself. It's a total betrayal of his friends and his own character. If he really cared about Betsy, he'd be focused on her recovery, not on who he can pin the blame on. Do you think he's telling the truth, or is he just making things up as he goes? I'm leaning toward him telling a half-truth to minimize his own involvement. Maybe Brody did provide something, but Dylan was the one who encouraged it. That would make the allegation even more sinister. The fallout from this is already starting to tear the street apart. We see Dylan and his dad, Sean, head into the Rover's return, but the reception they get is icy, to say the least. Lauren Bolton, who is Betsy's best friend, flat out refuses to serve them. This isn't just a legal battle anymore. It's a social execution. The younger generation is drawing lines in the sand. You've got Lauren siding firmly with Betsy, and then you've got Sean, who is starting to look at his own son with a lot of suspicion. The fact that Dylan refuses to go to the hospital with Sean is a huge red flag. If you're innocent and you love your girlfriend, you'd be banging on the hospital doors to see her, right? The fact that he's staying away suggests he's terrified of what Betsy might say when she finally wakes up and gets her voice back. What makes this even more tragic is the medical uncertainty of it all. Some fans are speculating that while everyone is screaming about drugs, it could actually turn out to be something else entirely. There's talk about it being a genetic condition or even a side effect of the contraceptive pill. Can you imagine the guilt Lisa and Dylan will have to live with if they've destroyed Brody's life over a medical fluke? If Lisa has initiated a criminal investigation based on a personal vendetta against a teenager, she could lose everything. Her career, her reputation, and her relationship with her daughter are all hanging by a thread. This is a massive gamble for her, and she's playing with people's lives. While all this madness is going down, we have to look at the parallel storyline with Sarah Platt. It's so interesting how the writers have these two stories running at the same time. Sarah is about to confess to killing Theo Silverton right after Kit Green proposes to her. Both stories are about the weight of a secret and how it can destroy your future. Dylan chooses to point the finger at someone else to stay free, while Sarah is reaching a point where she can't carry the truth anymore. It's a complete contrast in character. Sarah is willing to risk prison because her guilt is too heavy, but Dylan is willing to ruin someone else's life just to avoid a police interview. It really highlights how unheroic Dylan has become. And let's not forget that Kit Green is a cop, just like Lisa. Both officers are being put in positions where their personal lives and their professional duties are crashing into each other. So, Where does this all lead? I've got some theories about the long-term impact. I think Betsy's recovery is going to be a long-running storyline that changes her character forever. She was this independent, feisty girl who was ready to take on London, and now she might be facing a future where she struggles to even walk or talk without help. This loss of independence is going to be devastating for her. And as for Dylan, I don't see a happy ending for him. Even if he doesn't go to jail, the stink of this allegation will follow him everywhere. If Brody is innocent, Dylan is a liar. If Brody is guilty, Dylan is still the one who brought that element into Betsy's life. Either way, he's lost his standing on the street. I wouldn't be surprised if this leads to Dylan eventually leaving Weatherfield because he can't look anyone in the eye anymore. And what about the Brody twist? What if Dylan's allegation is actually a desperate attempt to cover up something even bigger? There's always a chance that Dylan was more involved in whatever Betsy took than he's letting on. If Betsy wakes up and her first words are, "Dylan gave it to me," it's game over for him. But if she backs up his story about Brody, then we're looking at a whole new level of drama. The street is becoming a minefield of ethical dilemmas where no one is truly innocent. This storyline is honestly a masterclass in how to take a medical tragedy and turn it into a psychological thriller. It's making us question everything. We want to feel for Lisa because her daughter is sick, but we hate that she's abusing her power. We want to feel for Dylan because he's just a kid in over his head, but we hate that he's a snitch. It's uncomfortable, it's frustrating, and honestly, it's great television. It's pushing these characters into corners they might never be able to crawl out of. I want to know what you guys think, though, because this is where it gets really interesting. Whose side are you on in the Lisa versus Dylan battle? Do you think Lisa is totally justified because a mother's intuition is never wrong? Or do you think she's a dangerous cop who needs to be suspended for what she's doing to Dylan? I mean, she arrested him in public without a shred of physical evidence. Is that justice? Or is that a vendetta? And second, what do you think of Dylan's allegation? Do you think he's telling the truth about Brody Michaelis? Or is he just a smart survivor who found a convenient scapegoat? And if Brody is innocent, how do you think he's going to react when the police come knocking on his door because of Dylan's big mouth? This could start a whole new war on the cobbles. Drop your theories in the comments below because I love reading your takes on these storylines, and honestly, the fans usually see the twists coming way before they happen. If you enjoyed this deep dive and you want more Coronation Street analysis that actually looks at the why behind the drama, make sure you hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow so we can keep bringing you these breakdowns. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. We've got so much more coming up, including a massive breakdown of Sarah Platt's confession and what it means for the future of the Platt family. You definitely don't want to miss that. Things are heating up in Weatherfield, and it feels like everything is about to explode. Thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one to see if Dylan can actually wiggle his way out of this mess. Keep your eyes on the cobbles, because you never know who's going to be the next one in a hospital gown. Looking back at the kitchen scene, the way Dylan reassuringly tells Betsy they can make a long-distance relationship work is just so tragic now. He says it with so much confidence, and she embraces him with so much hope. It's the last time they'll probably feel that close for a very long time. The fact that it was Ryan Connor who found her is also a really subtle bit of writing. Ryan knows all about physical trauma and life being flipped upside down. The panic he must have felt walking into that kitchen and seeing Betsy on the floor, it's just heart-wrenching. And let's talk about the hospital scenes again, because the medical side of this is being handled very seriously. Betsy being taken for that MRI scan is the start of a massive shift in her life. When she wakes up and finds it difficult to speak, that's going to be a huge hurdle for a character who is usually so vocal and sharp. It's a complete loss of her power as a character. Lisa's standing by her bedside, holding back tears. You can really feel the weight of that maternal fear. But the moment Lisa switches from scared mom to angry detective is when everything starts to fall apart for Dylan. Do you think Sean Tully is right to be suspicious of his son? Sean knows Dylan, and he knows that when Dylan gets scared, he tends to hide things. The way Dylan refuses to visit Betsy with his dad is a massive clue that Dylan is carrying a burden he can't share. And the fact that Lauren Bolton, who usually has a soft spot for Dylan, is the one to tell him that Betsy doesn't want to see him is just brutal. It shows that Dylan is becoming an outcast among his own peers. The legal side of this is going to be a mess too. Dylan being arrested in the precinct is a public mark against him. Even if the charges are dropped, how do you come back from that? People in Weatherfield have long memories when it comes to troubled kids. And if Brody Michaelis really is the culprit, Dylan has just put a target on a boy who already has a lot of enemies. It's a chain reaction of drama that's only just beginning. I'm really curious to see how the Reddit community reacts to the teenage stroke reveal once it officially airs. Some fans are already skeptical about whether the show can do the recovery journey justice. We've seen characters shake off paralysis before on this show, but a stroke is different. If they want this to be a serious, long-running storyline, they have to show the reality of speech therapy and physical therapy. They can't just have her back to normal in 3 weeks. What do you think about the parallel between Lisa Swain and Kit Green? Both are in positions of power, and both are dealing with loved ones who are caught up in potential crimes. Kit is about to find out that Sarah killed Theo, and Lisa is convinced Dylan nearly killed Betsy. They're both being forced to choose between the law and their hearts. It's a fascinating look at the cop archetype on soaps. Who do you think will break first? My money is on Lisa, especially if Betsy's condition doesn't improve quickly. Anyway, I could talk about this for hours because there are just so many layers to it. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos where we'll be tracking Betsy's recovery and the fallout from Dylan's allegation. We're going to be looking at every clue and every spoiler to see how this all ends. Thanks again for hanging out with me today, and remember to keep the conversation going in the comments. See you in the next one. And let's talk about the hospital scenes again, because the medical side of this is being handled very seriously. Betsy being taken for that MRI scan is the start of a massive shift in her life. When she wakes up and finds it difficult to speak, that's going to be a huge hurdle for a character who is usually so vocal and sharp. It's a complete loss of her power as a character. Lisa's standing by her bedside, holding back tears. You can really feel the weight of that maternal fear. But the moment Lisa switches from scared mom to angry detective is when everything starts to fall apart for Dylan. Do you think Sean Tully is right to be suspicious of his son? Sean knows Dylan, and he knows that when Dylan gets scared, he tends to hide things. The way Dylan refuses to visit Betsy with his dad is a massive clue that Dylan is carrying a burden he can't share. And the fact that Lauren Bolton, who usually has a soft spot for Dylan, is the one to tell him that Betsy doesn't want to see him is just brutal. It shows that Dylan is becoming an outcast among his own peers. The legal side of this is going to be a mess too. Dylan being arrested in the precinct is a public mark against him. Even if the charges are dropped, how do you come back from that? People in Weatherfield have long memories when it comes to troubled kids. And if Brody Michaelis really is the culprit, Dylan has just put a target on a boy who already has a lot of enemies. It's a chain reaction of drama that's only just beginning. I'm really curious to see how the Reddit community reacts to the teenage stroke reveal once it officially airs. Some fans are already skeptical about whether the show can do the recovery journey justice. We've seen characters shake off paralysis before on this show, but a stroke is different. If they want this to be a serious, long-running storyline, they have to show the reality of speech therapy and physical therapy. They can't just have her back to normal in 3 weeks. What do you think about the parallel between Lisa Swain and Kit Green? Both are in positions of power, and both are dealing with loved ones who are caught up in potential crimes. Kit is about to find out that Sarah killed Theo, and Lisa is convinced Dylan nearly killed Betsy. They're both being forced to choose between the law and their hearts. It's a fascinating look at the cop archetype on soaps. Who do you think will break first? My money is on Lisa, especially if Betsy's condition doesn't improve quickly. Anyway, I could talk about this for hours because there are just so many layers to it. Make sure you subscribe so you don't